The guests on this podcast, a lot of them are people I've met throughout my life and career. Not necessarily networking events, not through a LinkedIn cold outreach. We've worked together at some point, had coffee, stayed in touch over the years. And now, sometimes, a decade later, we're doing cool things together. Andrea Margolin was one of those people. We worked together in DC and actually happened to move to San Francisco about the same time. That was many years ago at this point, and here we are today. I didn't stay in touch with Andrea because I thought someday this will be useful for my career. I stayed in touch because I liked her, respected her, wanted to know what she was up to. Lately, I've been thinking, could I even do that today? Things are different. It's harder to meet people now, harder to stay connected, harder to get coffee with someone without it feeling calculated or really hard. Some of that's probably remote work. Some of it's probably just how things have evolved. But I think there's something deeper going on. People know relationships matter, and especially now with AI able to do so much of the technical work, everyone says it's all about connections. But then you try to reach out to someone and they don't reply. Or you do get coffee and it feels transactional, like you're both just checking a box. Or you're sending a LinkedIn message that feels forced because what are you supposed to say on LinkedIn? Or oddly enough, I'll get people reaching out to me on LinkedIn to connect, and I'll accept and reply, hey, what made you reach out? And hear nothing. It feels different than it used to be. Here's what I'm wrestling with. If relationships are the currency of a career, and I believe that they are, but the systems for building relationships are broken, what do you actually do? Welcome back to What We Don't Say. I'm Ken Roden. This is part 2 of a 3-part conversation with Andrea Margolin, SVP and partner at Fleishman Hillard, SVP and partner at Fleishman Hillard, who has spent over 2 decades proving that authentic storytelling and This is part 2 of a conversation with Andrea Margolin, SVP and partner of Fleishman Hillard. She spent over 2 decades proving that authentic storytelling and authentic living go hand in hand. We're talking about something that feels harder than ever, building genuine professional relationships in a world that's making it increasingly difficult to do so. Andrea opens up about something senior leaders won't admit. She still feels the imposter syndrome. Even after 20 years in the game, she explains why relationships are not technical skills, but still are the only real currency in a career. And more importantly, she explains how to actually build them when all the old playbooks don't seem to work anymore. This series, we're supporting Let Grow, a nonprofit promoting childhood independence, resilience, and common sense. You can find more about them at letgrow.org or just in the show notes. All right, let's dive in. So I want to ask you about 2 different things. The first is, you talked about the authenticity topic, which I think is really hard for a lot of people. You know, in my past life, it was really hard for me to be like showing up as my authentic self, because even if I was trying to show up authentically, I was still like, well, I'm in a job, so like I can't, be exactly who I am. But how do you find the balance of being authentically you and also being appropriate or being professional?
Sure.
Something that people maybe early on in their careers might be wondering.
Yeah. And I would say that's a great question, especially now, because I hear so much about like the different generations in the workforce. And I used to think of myself until recently, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty young. And I'm like, I'm not young anymore. Like I feel so out of touch with so many things. It's kind of a running joke. But I think, for me, the most important way to be authentic is to build trusting relationships with people. And it's funny because there's like a parallel in the work that I do and a lot of like how I build communications programs, especially with leaders. Like that is central to how we talk about how their programs exist. But for me, it's always about relationships. And I feel like that is like my currency. I've been at my firm for a really long time. So, of course, that has afforded me the ability to build relationships, but like it's not always been easy. Whenever I remember back at the beginning, and even now, when you're given a new role or responsibility, for me, it's always like I have to build trust. I have to demonstrate my abilities and capabilities in order to, um, g- achieve approval or opinion. But now I think I've realized like I'm 20 plus years into my career. I'm actually the reason I'm asked to work on things is because I've proven myself, not that I am not continuously learning and I'm humbled all the time, but I think I have to kind of remember like I've accomplished a lot. So I should lean into those accomplishments and not be bashful about them. Not obviously think I know it all, which I certainly don't, but kind of have that humility and bring that forward. And I think that also really relates to people at all levels because I think the imposter syndrome is a very real, very real thing. And you just want people to feel comfortable. And that's kind of leads to the relationship building that enables the trust and creates that authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, I think people say it over and over again, but like nobody knows what they're doing.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Like, I think, several times in my career when I've maybe gotten to a new room where I was like, this is where it happens. This is where, and you're like, wait a minute, still no idea. Still no
Yeah.
idea. But you base it off your experiences and what you've learned. The other thing that I wanted to hit on was I think family is such an important aspect of many people's lives. But what's similar to that or whatever else drives someone is it brings them happiness in their life so that they can live it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people struggle with thinking about balancing, okay, I've got to work really hard or questioning how hard do I have to work in order to be happy. How would you explain that to someone who's maybe not as experienced or maybe hasn't had to think about it or maybe just thinking I'm doing one, but really looking at the other one?
Yeah. This is something I've kind of spent a lot of time like struggling with and thinking about because working hard has been kind of impressed upon people, at least people of like the generation when I started working for a really long time. But I've spent a lot of time and I have a wonderful mentor. And the way he frames it is like, it's not about how hard you work, it's about like impact, return on impact. Thinking about like, where are you giving your energy and what are you getting out of it? And that might feel a little like hokey, but to be honest, you know, and I'm sure for you too, people come to you, people ask you to do things. It's because you've established yourself and you have a track record of being successful. One of my, I don't know, a blessing and a curse says I've done the what is it? Clifton Strengths Finders. And
Yeah.
my number one strength is responsibility, which is also like a toxic trait to have because it goes into overdrive and I can't not do something. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm doing it at a sacrifice of what? My happiness, missing something, kind of beating myself up because it's not perfect. And so I think I always try and come back to the notion of what level of impact am I giving? And even if I don't give 100%, am I still kind of leaving a mark or making something better? And I try and like come back to that at the end of the day because on the flip side, we're at the point of like having to teach them like work isn't easy.
What advice would you give to someone who just graduated?
I actually love this question. So I'll be quick, but I would say talk to as many people as you can. Don't be bashful, kind of lean into opportunities. If someone offers to send, look at your resume or connect you to someone, fully embrace that. Like I have found nothing is more fulfilling to me than when I have an intern or a babysitter even who's like, "Oh, hey, I'm interested in this career path. I've gotten my babysitter sister a job at my firm, and we had this amazing intern who I'm like, let's stay in touch. And we keep in touch all the time because I'm like, I want to see him succeed. I think I remember when I was like just getting out of college, it wasn't as hard to get a job, but it was so overwhelming. But the people who were generous and offered, like, you can't take that for granted because somewhere down the line, you're either going to pay it forward or that relationship is going to open a door to something new. So I would just say, meet as many people as you can, take advantage of the willingness of others to say, let me help, or what are you interested in? And I think, that is a skill that will pay off in the rest of your life and whatever you do.